If you want to get rid of inflation, the only way to do it is to undo a lot of the Trump tax cuts and raise rates. No Republican is ever going to do that. So the only way to get rid of inflation is through reconciliation.
I don't know anything what that meant. You're going to raise the taxes to get, I mean, that just depresses the supply side, creates more inflation. Anyway, Trump tax cuts pay for themselves. Government made money on those. As we thought, going way back, joining me now, Senator Kevin Cramer from the great state of North Dakota. Senator Cramer, I want to ask you what you thought Chuck Schumer just meant, which is probably a segment and a half by itself. But I can't resist myself. I want to know Elon Musk. How's Elon Musk playing in the great state of North Dakota? And what do you think about his free speech purchase of Twitter?
Well, first of all, I think it's marvelous to watch anybody buy Twitter away from the board that had it and make it private. You know, one thing about Elon Musk, he's very unpredictable, but that's part of the point here, is that he's a free market thinker in the market of ideas. And I'm all for it. It's what America was founded on. I think it's marvelous. I think that, you know, that the joke's on them in many respects, to watch this whole roller coaster play out. So I think a lot of us were cheering Elon Musk on. You know, I've never met the man, but you know, I'd like to. I think he and I would get along just fine, and we'd probably disagree about half the time, but that's okay.
I don't know. He's a good free market guy, libertarian. Anyway, Senator Cramer, you wrote a great piece on Fox website about inflation, and I wanted to walk through that. Free money can't fix inflation. The American producer can. And that's actually the exact opposite of what Schumer was saying. Schumer wants to raise corporate tax rates. It's the reduction of corporate tax rates that's probably given us what limited prosperity we have today.
Well, first of all, Larry, I think it's a really important point to look back at the tax cuts and what happened to the economy after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, and what that led to in terms of full employment, what it led to in terms of productivity, what it led to in terms of even producing more revenue for the government, to your point. And it also, by the way, led to a foundation that allowed our economy to get through the pandemic and come out so strong and so robust and really growing at a very fast rate, which now all of a sudden, you know, they want to stifle. And it makes zero sense. As I point out in the piece, when Joe Biden became president, inflation was 1.4%. And now, of course, it's 8.5% and growing. And in rural America, it's even higher than that, which is part of the point I was making as a representative from a rural state.
How do you you met with Joe Manchin, or you were in a group with Joe Manchin? Joe Manchin's another hero of mine, by the way.
Yeah, I agree.
Help saving
Prime
America.
Minister Joe Manchin, I call him. Yeah.
Mr. Joe Manchin, yes, sir. But the point, I'm a little confused. He made a statement where he said there's not going to be any Build Back Better. That's done. I mean, he said that on this show. He's not going to go back on his spending. No. But he is trying to negotiate some sort of compromise on oil and gas and green and something or other. He met with Schumer. Maybe you were in a meeting with him and some other people. I'm not sure, like the legislative strategy here, I'm not sure where this is driving, and I was hoping you could illuminate us.
I'll see if I can help you a little bit. So, as I like to call him, Prime Minister Manchin, what he did is he called some people together from both parties. I just happened to be the only one from my party that showed up, for not because they were disrespectful to Joe's idea, but because they had other priorities. That said, it was an initial meeting to talk about a possible path forward on energy and climate policy that we could, you know, get 60 votes on. Given this moment we're in, Larry, and you and I have talked about this, but Joe really recognizes this. We have European allies who previously sort of shunned our energy, who are now begging for American energy. They have voluntarily cut themselves off from Vladimir Putin. They are open to the free market. We just happen to have a lot of supply in this market, and they have a lot of demand. And so it kind of gets back to my op-ed. If there's a way for us to come to this realization, this opportunity to produce more in the United States, which will bring down price, much like Donald Trump did when he was president, and be able to offer that on the global market, Obviously, it has national security ramifications as well as economic ramifications for our country. Joe was just looking at this door being opened for us as a country, along with the inflation, and saying, hey guys, do we have an opportunity here to step through this door and do our part as an American producer that has more than anybody in the marketplace.
But all these recent regulations coming out of the White House on NEPA and so forth will basically stop all that. I mean, no permits, no highways, no roads, no bridges, no tunnels, no pipelines, no nothing. I mean, that's what's coming out of the White House. So they speak with forked tongue. Even in the short run, I don't think they want any more oil and gas or pipelines to ship it or LNG terminals.
Well, and as you know, the short run won't attract a lot of investment anyway, so we need to have long run opportunities for long-term investments. But what's different here is that Joe is talking to both Republicans and Democrats in the Senate and the House, but largely in the Senate, at a time when the White House is, as you said, they're putting up all of these roadblocks to production. However, there are many Democrats growing more and more uncomfortable with the intransigence of the White House's position. I stress White House because I think there's a White House and I think there's Joe Biden. I don't think the two are necessarily always on the same wavelength. So if Joe Manchin can get something put together that can get enough votes that Republicans and Democrats can agree to, then maybe he can go to his friend Joe Biden and say, Mr. President, let's set Gina McCarthy and John Kerry on the sidelines for a moment. Let's have a realistic talk about the opportunities in front of us. And I'm willing to play along as long as we can get some things that are really important, not just to North Dakota, but to national security of our great country.
You know, Senator Kramer, just the last few seconds here. You told me, I don't know, a couple months ago on a Sunday show that Joe Manchin was trying to save the Democratic Party from itself. Yeah. Okay? I thought it was a great point. You got a lot of press from that, deservedly so. But you know what, Senator Kramer? I don't think anybody could save this Democratic Party from itself.
It would be a really tall order. There's no question about it. And I'm not sure. I think you're right in many respects. The momentum is such. I mean, look at this most recent decision by the president to open up 20% of the available federal lands to leasing, but at the same time, he puts up all these other roadblocks to production, including Gina McCarthy going on national television saying, we didn't really mean it. We just had to do something. We have this court problem as opposed to a reality problem.
Cavalry's coming, Senator Kramer. The cavalry is coming. Thank you, sir.